This is In Character. I'm your host, Gerard Robinson, Vice President for Education at the Advanced Studies in Culture Foundation.
I'm honored to be sitting in for Gerard this afternoon, and I'm very excited and even more honored to have with us a special guest, Kimberly Worthy. So welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you, Katherine. Happy to be here.
And I'd like to start with just a simple question. Who is Kimberly?
Kimberly Worthy is a mother, a teacher of 20 years, and a civil rights, social justice activist since I was a little girl. And I emphasize that because I owe it to my parents. Since I was 5 years old, I've been fighting for social justice, and that is what has made me who I am today. My parents, I remember my parents taking me to the March on Washington for Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday to become a holiday, where Stevie Wonder first sang his happy birthday song. And I rode my father's shoulders. I was a very little girl. I also remember marching as a child to fight against apartheid in South Africa. And I would go to the South African embassy every weekend with my father and be detained with him. And so those memories are etched in my brain and my mind. And when Nelson Mandela was freed and he came to the convention center in Washington, D.C., we had front row seats. We were right there to see him. And I felt I was a part of his freeing from prison. And I had to be there, and I was crying. I was still in high school, and I just had to be there. And so my parents made sure that I was a part of movements in Washington, D.C., movements in our country, movements in our world. And so I knew that I wanted to pursue a career that was beyond myself and served a bigger purpose. And that's what I've done. I've chosen a life of teaching, and I love it. It's my passion and my purpose. So I am Kimberly, a Black woman. That being a Black woman is a social activist in itself every day. I am a mother to a Black girl, young woman, she's 17, and I am a teacher, a Black female teacher that is a social activist every single day.
Thank you. I've been privileged to know you for a long time, and I think that was a beautiful answer. And it sounds like those memories are also etched in your soul, as they should be.
Yeah.
A follow-up question. You mentioned Nelson Mandela. You mentioned marching for civil rights and social justice for the people of South Africa. And I know that you then went to South Africa more than once to teach and to learn. And our topic, of course, is resilience. What did you learn about resilience by going to South Africa, and what did you teach?
Okay, so, well, I didn't teach too much. I went to teach, I thought, but when I got there, I ended up learning that I went there to learn, and that's because of the people in South Africa. They were very good at what they did. And that was engaging my soul, engaging the heart. They call it Ubuntu,
Yes.
humanity, reclaiming humanity in a world of oppression. And they say that the human spirit has been robbed, has been taken, and that you reclaim it by conquering your fears, by tapping into your soul, tapping into being honest, being held accountable for your word, being accountable for your mistakes, being accountable for your actions, not allowing instances and experiences that have harmed you to hold you back, to keep moving forward, to acknowledge what has happened to you, but to also continue forward, to be resilient, but also to allow people to support you. And so for me, I had to be vulnerable in that space. I had to acknowledge pain. I had to acknowledge experiences that I had buried in my soul for years. And understanding how to reclaim my students' humanity, I had to reclaim my own. To be a true support system for my students, I had to be vulnerable myself. And so, and what does that look like in a classroom, in a society where the authority figure is not supposed to be vulnerable? And so it was really deconstructing the entire model that we have here in the United States. And I had to humble myself to this program, to this whole completely different paradigm in South Africa. And so I surrendered. Because the very first day I got there, I learned I was confronted, and what felt like an attack was honesty. And what I learned from their approach is that honesty is love. But what we consider an attack here, and we become defensive, for them it's just honesty and it's love. And so I was told on the very first day there that I used my students. And I was just taken aback. I couldn't believe it. And this is in a circle. This is in front of so many people. And it was after I expressed how much I love my students and how much I come alive in the classroom and how much I felt depressed about being away from my students when I left the classroom one year and so on and so forth. And the response was, Kim, I feel you use your students. And it took me about 4 months to finally accept and own what the reflection. They call it reflection in South Africa. And when I owned it, I went to and I knew exactly, once I owned it, I knew exactly what they were talking about. They didn't know at all. They're so conscious. They're so aware of everything. They can look at you and tell you everything's going on in your life. But I knew exactly what they were talking about. And I went back to the students and apologized. Had a circle group with them, and I apologized. And the tears started coming down their faces. And I said, oh my goodness. And I harmed them. And the situation was, there was a situation with the Postal Museum. I was on a project, and I went to the hospital, and some teachers didn't follow through on a project that they were doing, and I didn't want it to fall through because it would make our school and university look bad. So I took over the project, created a curriculum, and then I had this honors group of students that I knew would do a phenomenal job, and they did. I knew they would, but I didn't take into consideration any of their other courses they were in. They were taking 7 courses. They were honors kids. Phenomenal, brilliant students. But I gave it to them, and because of our rapport and how they felt about me too, I also took advantage of that. They did it last minute, and it was, amazing. I took it on speeches and, went around the country. This is when I was doing speeches. It was phenomenal.
It sounds like it.
But I totally disregarded their health, their well-being, their other courses, and I didn't think of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And months later, when I was in South Africa, it took, the reflection and the awareness for them to bring it to my awareness. You use your students. And from that moment on, once I was aware, because I went through their training, and a large portion of the training is first bringing you to that point of awareness. And once I got to that point, it hit me. And ever since then, I'm completely intentional about every step I make with my students. What is this lesson about? What is this, grade? How am I grading? Everything is intentional. And when I teach resilience, even there, it is about, intention. I'm teaching the students about their intention and how they are responsible, how they are accountable, and how I teach them about being vulnerable and how they are responsible. And I have to do it by modeling. And I do it through our group and through sharing and support. The students support each other. I support. But I don't allow their circumstances and experiences to keep them where they are.
It sounds like you learned a great deal about yourself. Yeah.
You can't do this work if you think you're going to fix someone as if you're fixed.
Yes.
As if you're perfect. Because that's not what it's about.
It is not. We are almost out of time, but I have one last question for you. I know that a lot of your career has been spent focusing on trauma-informed classrooms and the students within those classrooms. What have you taught and what have you learned about resilience through that experience?
I have learned that you should never give up on any child. Every brain can change. Every human can change. And so if we give students support that have come from traumatic backgrounds, or have had traumatic experiences, they can have and lead productive, successful lives. No one should be thrown away in our society. And I've seen it. I know it can happen with the support system. And so I have been, for many students, that support system. And that's the trauma-informed teacher. It's that support that we all need and deserve. And, you know, to this day, I am extremely close to my students who have had traumatic experiences, but they still rely on me for support, and they're leading wonderful lives. Wonderful lives.
And they are blessed to have had you in their life. They're blessed to have had you as their teacher. And I am blessed to have you as my friend. So Kimberly Worthy, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights and your brilliance about resilience. It is greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Katherine. I'm blessed to have you as my friend as well.